Hello friends. Welcome back to the channel. Let me say this slowly, because this is where most people misunderstand their own fear. You are not afraid of speaking English. You are afraid of sounding stupid while speaking English. And these two fears are very different, even though they feel the same. If English was really the problem, you wouldn't be able to think in it. You wouldn't understand videos, conversations, or explanations. You wouldn't be able to form sentences in your head. But you can. The problem starts the moment another person is involved. The moment someone can hear you. The moment your voice becomes public. That is when your chest feels tight. That is when your mind suddenly goes blank. That is when your confidence disappears. Because now it's not about English anymore. Now it's about how you will be judged. You are not afraid of making mistakes. You are afraid of what those mistakes will say about you. You are afraid that someone will notice your grammar. You are afraid that someone will hear your accent. You are afraid that your sentence will not sound intelligent enough. And somewhere deep inside, there is one thought you never say openly. What if they think I'm stupid? That thought is the real fear. Not fluency, not vocabulary, not pronunciation, judgment. When you speak your native language, you feel like yourself. You can explain complex ideas. You can show confidence, humor, personality, intelligence. But when you speak English, that version of you feels hidden. Your thoughts are still intelligent, but your words feel limited. And that gap hurts more than any grammar mistake. Because it feels like your intelligence is being reduced. It feels like you know more than you can show. It feels like you are being misunderstood, even before you finish speaking. That feeling creates embarrassment, and embarrassment trains silence. This is why practice alone never fixed the fear. This is why years of learning still didn't give you confidence. Because this fear was never about language. It was about identity. Your brain is not asking whether you know enough English. Your brain is asking whether it is safe to sound imperfect in front of people. And as long as your brain believes that mistakes are dangerous, it will protect you by keeping you quiet. Silence feels safer than judgment. Silence feels safer than embarrassment. Silence feels safer than being misunderstood. So every time you stay quiet, your brain thinks it did the right thing. But this protection is costing you confidence. It is costing you expression. It is costing you growth. And until you understand this, you will keep blaming your English for a fear that never belonged to English in the first place. Now let's talk about what is actually happening inside your brain when you try to speak English. Because the fear you feel is not random. It is not weakness. And it is definitely not lack of ability. It is conditioning. Your brain has learned to treat speaking English as a social risk. Not because English is dangerous, but because every time you spoke and felt embarrassed, your brain recorded that moment as a warning. It remembers the pause. It remembers the correction. It remembers the look on someone's face. It remembers how small you felt in that moment. So now, before you even open your mouth, your brain tries to protect you. It speeds up your heartbeat. It tightens your throat. It blocks words that you actually know. Not because you are bad at English, but because your brain thinks silence is safer than exposure. This is why your English sounds fine in your head, but falls apart when you speak. Your brain is not failing you. It is defending you. And this is where something very important comes in. The smarter you are, the stronger this fear becomes. Because intelligent people are more aware of how they are perceived. They care more about accuracy. They notice mistakes faster. They feel the gap between their real thinking level and their spoken level more sharply. So when you speak English and your sentence sounds basic, your brain compares it to how advanced your thoughts actually are. And that comparison hurts. It feels like you are being reduced. It feels like you are being underestimated. It feels like you are being seen as less capable than you truly are. So, your brain says, if I cannot represent myself properly, I should not speak. That's not laziness. That's self-protection. And this is why telling yourself, just speak confidently never works. Because confidence is not a switch. It is a consequence. You don't become confident and then speak. You speak, survive the discomfort, and then confidence is built. But here's the trap you're stuck in. You are waiting to sound confident before you allow yourself to speak. And because you don't speak, you never collect proof that mistakes are survivable. So the fear stays. Every time you stay silent, your brain learns one lesson. Silence worked. Nothing bad happened. We stayed safe. And every time you speak and feel embarrassed, your brain learns the opposite lesson. Speaking is dangerous. Avoid it next time. This is why your confidence goes backwards after one bad experience. Not because your English got worse, but because your brain updated its threat system. Now here's the truth most people never hear. Fluent speakers did not stop caring about mistakes. They stopped treating mistakes as threats. They allowed themselves to sound unclear. They allowed pauses. They allowed imperfect sentences. And slowly, their brain learned something new. Nothing terrible happened. No one attacked them. No one rejected them. No one defined their intelligence by one sentence. That learning is what creates confidence. Not motivation. Not grammar rules. Not positive thinking. Experience. Right now, your brain has more evidence that silence is safe than evidence that speaking is safe. And until that balance changes, the fear will keep coming back. Now let's talk about the mistake that keeps everything stuck. The mistake is not grammar. The mistake is not pronunciation. The mistake is not vocabulary. The real mistake is this expectation you carry every time you speak. You expect to sound complete. You expect to sound clear. You expect to sound intelligent from the first sentence. And that expectation is exactly why you sound nervous. Because when you expect perfection, your brain starts monitoring every word before it comes out. It checks the grammar. It checks the structure. It checks how it might sound. It checks how it might be judged. And while your brain is checking, your sentence freezes. That is why you pause too much. That is why your voice feels tight. That is why your natural flow disappears. You are not speaking anymore. You are performing. And performance creates pressure. This is why fluent speakers sound relaxed. Not because their English is perfect, but because they are not monitoring themselves while speaking. They allow incomplete sentences. They allow correction mid-sentence. They allow their thoughts to come out raw first. They don't try to sound smart. They focus on getting the message out. And this is a very important difference. When your goal is to sound intelligent, your attention stays on yourself. When your goal is to communicate, your attention moves outward. Confidence lives in that shift. Right now, your attention is locked inside your head. You are listening to yourself more than the other person. You are judging yourself in real time. That is why speaking feels exhausting. Your brain is doing two jobs at once, producing language and evaluating it. And no brain can do that smoothly. So here is the uncomfortable truth. You don't lack confidence. You are over-controlling your speech. And control kills fluency. Children become fluent quickly because they don't protect their image. They speak badly. They sound unclear. They get corrected. And they keep going. Adults stop improving because they protect their self-image at all costs. You don't want to sound stupid for 2 seconds, so you choose to stay silent for years. And your brain supports that choice, because silence feels like control. But control is not growth. Growth requires exposure. Exposure requires risk. Risk requires accepting that you may sound less intelligent for a moment. And this is where most people resist. They say they want confidence, but they are not willing to look imperfect. So nothing changes. Your English doesn't improve in real situations. Your fear doesn't reduce. Your confidence doesn't arrive. Because confidence is not something you think yourself into. Confidence is something your nervous system learns through experience. Right now, your nervous system associates English with danger. Not real danger. Social danger. And the only way to change that association is to show your brain repeatedly That sounding imperfect does not destroy your value. That people don't define you by one sentence. That intelligence is not measured in grammar accuracy. That mistakes are normal, survivable, and forgettable. Once your brain learns this, your voice will automatically relax. Your pauses will shorten. Your flow will return. Not because you force confidence, but because the fear finally lost its purpose. Now let's close this by changing the way you approach speaking English forever. Not by adding confidence, not by memorizing better sentences, but by removing the pressure you've been carrying. The biggest shift fluent speakers make is very simple, yet most learners never make it consciously. They stop treating speaking as a performance. They don't enter a conversation trying to sound correct. They enter trying to be understood. And this one shift changes everything. When you stop trying to sound intelligent, your sentences become clearer. When you stop trying to avoid mistakes, your flow becomes smoother. When you stop protecting your image, your confidence starts appearing on its own. Because now your brain is no longer under threat. You're no longer asking, "How do I sound?" You're asking, "Did they understand me?" And that question pulls your attention outward. It frees your voice. It frees your breathing. It frees your thinking. This is why confidence feels effortless in fluent speakers. Not because they are fearless, but because they are focused. They accept one truth that most learners resist. They accept that sometimes they will sound unclear. They accept that sometimes they will correct themselves. They accept that sometimes their sentence will not represent their full intelligence. And they speak anyway, because they know something you haven't been told. People do not judge you as harshly as you judge yourself. People forget your mistakes faster than you think. And people care more about your message than your grammar. The moment you stop trying to protect your image, your brain stops sending fear signals. Your voice stabilizes. Your pauses reduce. Your confidence becomes visible. Not fake confidence. Real, calm confidence. This is also why repeating affirmations never worked. This is why motivation fades. This is why just speak more feels impossible. Because no one taught you how to speak without pressure. That's exactly what we focus on here. If you want to train your brain to feel safe while speaking, if you want to stop overthinking every sentence, and if you want to sound confident without pretending, then subscribe to this channel. Because every video here is designed to fix the real problem. Not just your English, but your relationship with English. And if this video described you accurately, comment, "I will speak anyway." That one sentence is a mental decision. And decisions are where confidence begins. You don't need perfect English to sound confident. You need permission to be imperfect. Once you give yourself that permission, speaking English stops being scary. It starts becoming natural. And that's when fluency actually begins. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.